Hi everybody, Ronan here. Today marks the beginning of the Kitakami Prologue online ladder competition. I don't know what they want to call it, but it is a really cool in-game competition where you can only use teams made up of Pokemon in the Kitakami decks. This is going to be a full team breakdown, concept behind it, how I chose each and every Mon in the team, the testing process I went through, everything. So if you do want to skip ahead, there will be timestamps in below. Let's get into the team. The story behind this was my son bought a shiny Poliwag. I showed him the shiny for Politoed because he couldn't decide which Mon he wanted to evolve it to, whether he wanted to go Poliwrath or Politoed. So I showed him both shinies. He thought Politoed was the cutest thing he'd ever seen and decided that I was going to use it in my battles this weekend. So I had to come up with a rain team. As you can see, I went through several variations of this team trying to get it to work. I'd actually started off by taking a Garchomp team that I was running in towards the end of Reg B. When I first started playing VGC, I was using a Garchomp Goldengo Murkrow team. So I've actually started building around that with this, where I placed the Murkrow for Mise, I placed the Goldengo with Finisher, which also then kind of doubled as my redirection support. So I ended up with my Goldengo and my Amoonguss kind of in one. And then I added in Fire Ogre because it's probably the hardest hitting Mon in the format. I wanted some fake out, so we had Weavile and Intimidate support, plus a bit of additional speed control with Gyarados. Really solid team. And then my son threw Politoed into the mix, which kind of messed with me a little bit. Then I kind of tried to adapt that a little bit. I wanted to keep the Sinistra. The Sinistra and the Ogerpon had been really good for me. Platski Legion makes the most sense as a rain sweeper, so we ended up with that core of 4. With the 2 physical damage dealers, I didn't want to add Garchomp into it because that leaves me too weak to Intimidate. At this point, we weren't entirely sure whether that regional forms would be allowed, but adding in Garchomp would have made me weak to Alolan Ninetales, Hisuian Arcanine, Gyarados, regular Arcanine. It just felt a bit wrong. So I went for a different dragon, and in came Komodo. And I couldn't think of a 6th. I'd used Gardevoir quite a bit with that original Garchomp team, and it'd been absolutely incredible for me in my draft league. So I slapped on Gardevoir. It didn't quite feel right to me though, and I thought, if I'm running Gardevoir, it's kind of wrong not to run Garchomp. So I bit the bullet and I threw in the Chomp. She should be Terra Flying on the Sinistra. Ended up with that, and that actually rained every single match. And those matches that wasn't bringing the rain, it felt kind of slow. So make things a little faster, we went with Scarf Chomp, and this felt a lot better. Beyond 1 or 2 Mons, Scarf Chomp is probably the fastest thing in the format. It's incredible. And that combination of Telepathy Gardevoir with Garchomp, it's just so good. I love it. Especially when the Gardevoir with the Sash, 252 club up, it deals a surprising amount of damage. With it being quite a few dragons in the meta, with your Garchomp, with your Komodo, Dazzling Gleam works. It's great chip damage. Thunderbolt was a good counter into rain teams. There's not a huge amount of special attack in the format, so having a pretty big hitting special attacker was just great. But I was still kind of feeling a lack of speed control when I was facing down particularly the Water Ogre and Water Ogre Pond was giving me quite a lot of trouble inside and outside of the range. So I needed a way to give myself even the slightest advantage. So I came to the conclusion of dropping Sinister for Illumise. Now, Illumise and Volby are the only Prankster Tailwind mons in the format. The problem they have is they don't deal a great deal of damage and they're very, very frail. So what I ended up trying to do was to give it a bit of bulk so that it didn't go down for one hit every single time, but also make sure it was guaranteed to get out that Tailwind. Where if I was going into an Ogre Pond mirror match, I could bring bottom 4 here, and for at least 4 turns I was going to be going first, because a lot of them weren't using Tailwind. This worked so well for so long. Then I started getting a little bit higher on the ladder, and I started running into a lot of Mouse 8 and King Gambit, and those hurt my soul, because into Mouse 8 especially I wanted to bring Vascular Legion, but depending on the other Pokemon on the team, I didn't necessarily want to bring Politoed and Gardevoir, because I wasn't wanting to terror it at all really. It was a bit of a liability, even with the Focus Sash. So we had to go back to the drawing board a little bit, and I kind of reverted back to the original version of the team. But I needed a different special attacker instead of Gardevoir, and I struggled so hard to find the 6th mon. I ended up realizing that Glamora, in theory, is really, really good in this format. Poison into all of the grass types is beautiful. It's fast, it can hit hard, it has a lot of coverage. So with Sludge Bomb to hit all the grass types, Earth Power to hit King Gambit, Power Gem to deal with a lot of the fire types, and Inkling, because I just thought Terra Fairy was going to be the best Terra type for it. We rolled with this for a bit. Didn't feel great. I still struggled quite a bit with setup. So me personally, I'm not a huge fan of setup. Komo I found pretty good, because as soon as you've set up, you feel the impact of that setup. So you go Fang of Soul, get your Omni Boost, proc your Throat Spray, and the next turn you're outspeeding absolutely everything, and boom, it was hitting like a truck. But it still didn't feel great to play. So I dropped the Glamor. Probably the wrong choice to drop. I probably should have dropped the Komo, but I was determined I wanted to make Komo work. I like the Pokemon, and I brought in some fake out support, which also gave me a little bit extra speed control in Grimmsnarl. I couldn't decide on an item, so I thought, well, given that I'm investing quite heavily in its bulk, let's put an item on that boosts damage of Spirit Break. Pixie Plate makes sense, and Grimmsnarl was a revelation. I've never really used Grimmsnarl because I've always seen it as a green support, but wow, Grimmsnarl's just incredible. Absolutely incredible. I will be using more of this Pokemon going forward. Fake Out, Prankster T-Wave. Oh, Prankster T-Wave is amazing. Amazing speed control. The Taunt, which caused me quite a few issues, because the big problem I hit with this was an absolute skill issue. 100% skill issue. Trying to Taunt and T-Wave opposing Grimmsnarls. Don't ask me why, but I always forget that you can't Prankster Taunt a Dark type. I also forget that you can't Prankster Taunt and Prankster T-Wave in Psychic terrain. So in DD matchups specifically, Grimmsnarl was kind of a waste, and that's the big issue I was hitting with this team, was Psychic terrain and opposing Grimmsnarls. So my next iteration was to swap Komo. I tried incredibly hard to make it work. I couldn't. Into certain matchups, it was absolutely incredible, especially into like Trick Room, where I could prevent the Trick Room going up, because they tend to have that passive turn 1 where it's fake out into Trick Room, redirection into Trick Room. There's not a lot of damage output there. Into those sort of matchups, Como was so strong. But if there was a matchup where it was almost a hyper offense mirror match, where I didn't want to bring the rain, Como was not, it didn't give me that immediate damage output that I wanted. So I went through a bunch of different testing, some calcs, some team builders, blah blah blah, and it still didn't feel great. I was still missing something, and I was getting absolutely decimated by Ogopons. Then I stumbled across something. Sipper Gudra. This blew my mind. Choice Specs Sap Sipper Gudra is incredible. Draco Meteor coming off of a base 110 special attack. It's pretty hard already. You throw a pair of choice specs on this, and that Draco Meteor is one-shotting anything that doesn't resist it, if it hits. With Haze on Politoed, if you're in the rain, I can bring out Politoed, Draco Meteor, haze away the stat drop. Threw on Ulamise to bring back the Tailwind, and this was going well for quite a long time. The only real issue I had with the team was that I was wanting Ulamise to die, because it didn't have the damage output. It didn't have, to be honest, it didn't have any damage output. And there were so many situations where it just wasn't safe to bring something in. So I either needed to find something as a Tailwind setter that had more damage output, so that it could sit on the field, it could click some buttons, it could do some decent chip damage for the Ogopon, for the Gudra, for the Basque Legion. I was just finding it really hard, especially with the Rain Core, to bring Ulamise and Politoed, because you end up in that situation with two mons that have zero damage output whatsoever. And this meant that I knew cracks to tell. And shout out to, I think it was Fluffo? I forget who it was in the RDL Discord that was using Ribombi. I'd seen a lot of tier lists rolling around absolutely dunking on Ribombi, but having Stab Pollen Puff, which doubles as a heal or something like your Gudra, your Ogopon, your Basque Legion, also having Stab Dazzling Gleam, which is decent chip spread damage. This thing did some work. Now, the ability is a bit lacking, and it's not the bulkiest thing out there. It's probably only slightly bulkier than the Praxter Bugs, but it was chucking out some offense. It was doing reasonably well. What I was struggling with now was A, Grimmsnarl lacking damage output. B, I was getting absolutely destroyed by Terraflying King Gambit. And C, not having redirection, Mouse 8 was still wrecking me. So we had a little bit of a switch up in the couple of sets. So we went with Mystic Water on Basque Legion because I found myself clicking Wave Crash more than clicking Last Respects. So losing the choice band damage on Last Respects wasn't a massive issue. Gaining Protect was huge. Grimmsnarl, I added a lot more speed going to the mirror, and I tweaked the bulk a little bit. Plus added 76 Adamant to give us a bit more oomph to counteract the loss of some of that bulk I put on a Citrus Berry. And I switched up Ogopon to the Rock type. People sleep on this Rock type Ogopon. Sturdy, giving us built-in Focus Sash, because I wasn't terroring Fire Ogre very often. I found myself terroring Gudra or Basque Legion more than Fire Ogre. So with the Rock Ogre, I'm essentially getting the same damage output as pre-Swords Dance Fire Ogre and a built-in Focus Sash. So specifically into those Annihilate and King Gambit matchups, Terraflying Terror Blast from King Gambit is no longer super effective, and beat up boosted Rage Fist is no longer going to one-shot. And with both, we can retaliate with 100% accurate, 100 base power, mask boosted Rock Proof, which on a Terraflying King Gambit is a delete button. On Mouse Ape, not so much, but it deals a shitload of damage, and with a double up alongside something like Rabombi, which I switched over to Moonblast from Dazzling Gleam. I also put in a Reflect on there to help reduce some of that physical damage. The double up from Ivy Cudgel plus Moonblast, there's absolutely nothing that Abe is going to do. And when you've got essentially 2 focus sashes on the field at that time, they're losing their Abe that first turn. Doesn't matter what they do. Now I ran into the issue where Basculegion just wasn't cutting it. It wasn't really fitting with the rest of the team. It was a water type that I couldn't really bring outside of the rain because it was so reliant on that Swift Swim ability. There were games where I wanted a natural water type to be there, where matchups where I knew I wasn't going to really want to Terra Goodra. There's something else I wanted to Terra, like the Terra Ghost Grimmsnarl. You know, I was going into a matchup where I was going to need that fake out turn 1, but Grimmsnarl, not being the fastest fake out user, was probably going to get faked out. They fake out the fake out so that their big hitter in slot 2 can one-shot my big hitter. So I fumbled around quite a bit, and I came to the conclusion that this core of 3 here going to need to change. The makeup of the team itself didn't need to change. I still needed a Tailwind, but I was going to need something a bit bulkier. I still needed the water type to take advantage of the rain, and I still wanted an Ogerpon, because all of the Ogerpon forms just ridiculous in this format, absolutely ridiculous. The damage output on them is just insane. I started with the Tailwind option, and I cycled through a whole heap of bulky Tailwind mobs, and none of them really felt right. I ran Mandibuzz for a little bit. I think that was about the closest I could get. I'd seen so many people saying Mandibuzz was amazing. Go for it. Go try it. So I went with Mandibuzz, but Mandibuzz was okay. It was giving me that bulky Tailwind setter that I wanted, but it just didn't really have the damage output that I wanted. But it fulfilled half of the role I was looking for. So on we moved to dealing with this water type issue, and this was almost forced on me after a few games with this variation of the team, where I was going over some replays and I realized I could really do with a redirection. There's games where I can't bring Grimmsnarl because it's not going to be fast enough, or there's Indeedee on the field, so nothing about Grimmsnarl works. I also still needed to swap out a water type that was actually going to do what I needed. So ended up adding in the Water Ogre. Yes, I was having to sacrifice a bit of the immediate damage that you get with the Fire Ogre, with the Rock Ogre, to give it some bulk so it could take a couple of hits with that Follow Me. But it was so good, so good. You put it as an offensive mon in the rain, and those water type Ivy Cudgels are ridiculous. And alongside Goodra, with Scald, with the Specs Draco Meteor, that rain team was going nuts. The trouble I was having was finding the 4th mon, and I ended up realizing that, you know what, if you can't beat them, join them. So I brought my own Annihilate. Now, here, obviously, I don't have the mouse hold, so I had to quickly realise that Rage Fist, until it's got a couple of stacks on it, isn't the all-powerful one-shot that you see it when it's on mouse 18. But what I was finding was that leading it next to Grimmsnarl, you can go Fake Out into Bulk Up, or next to Ogerpon, I could go Follow Me, Bulk Up. So I almost always had that +1 from the beginning, and +1 Drain Punch does some damage. There were so many games where Annihilate was on the field turn 1, and it was the non getting me the last KO of the match. It just didn't go down. After 1 or 2, there was so many times where I was getting 2 bulk ups because I was reading double protects, or I knew that they were going to have a passive turn where I was like, well, you're going to protect, you're going to do whatever, I'll click another bulk up and I'll have my Gudra drop a Draco Meteor on that thing over there, or I'll hit a Horn Leech with the Ogerpon just to keep them honest. But even without the Rage Fist stacks, that fight is so good. Now I just needed to sort out that Tailwind Mandibuzz issue, because I'd added another physical attacker, and people say, you know, you don't have to worry if you've got 5 physical attackers, 1 special attacker, it's not the end of the world. For me it kind of is, because I look at a team full of physical attackers and I think Intimidate's going to destroy that. You know, yes, Annihilate's got Defiant, but Annihilate without Mousehold and without a bulk up is not going to do a great deal. You can feel free to give it the +1 and then knock it out. Easier said than done, yes, but that's my thinking on it, is the way I look at it. So I wanted rid of Mandibuzz, and I wanted to round out the special attack, physical attack balance. So I think you can see where this is going. I added a Pheasantipity. It's not the greatest thing out there, but that Sludge Bomb is so good. So good. I also realized I was kind of missing the healing from Sinistra a little bit. I was still trying to play setup on Annihilate similarly to how I was playing the setup on Komao. So I dropped the choice specs on Gudra, doing a life deal. Also wanted bulk on Pheasantipity, so I gave it Grimmsnarl's Citrus Berry and threw a Covert Cloak on Grimmsnarl. So now I don't really lose the fake out war with opposing Grimmsnarls. It meant that I didn't need the Terra Ghost as well, which was really good. So I put the Terra Poison on there, and to be honest with you, I never Terra Grimmsnarl now. It works so well. That Covert Cloak Grimmsnarl is beautiful on the lead. I pretty much lead it every single match. There's very few matchups where I don't lead Grimmsnarl. That's pretty much only if there's an Indeedee on the other side. That's the only time I don't lead Grimmsnarl. So this is the team. This is what we're rolling with for the competition. It's not perfect. It still struggles against quite a few of what I think will be the top teams that we play in. It still struggles against Terraflying King Gambit, Terraflying Gyarados. Mouseape can still cause us problems depending on what else they've got around there. And it's still really tough into Indeedee Trick Room. But I've spent so long testing it, made so many tweaks and changes. I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to do fairly well with this. Day 1 is here. The first game, and we're immediately up against King Gambit and Annihilate, along with new Pokemon, Dipplin. Luckily, Sapsipper Gudra is absolutely phenomenal into this team. Draco Meteor one-shots Dipplin, Sapsipper prevents Ogerpon from healing up, and the Dragon typing resists the Ivy Cudgel, with Scald to do massive damage in return. I do Grimmsnarl to prevent the setup, and my own Ogerpon for the immediate offense. But my opponent leads their own Grimmsnarl and Dipplin. I fake out the Dipplin, switching Gudra. My opponent sets up a Reflect. I Terra Water to stop Gudra taking super effective damage from Grimm, and as I thought, one-shot the Dipplin with a Draco. In the process, I found out that my Grimmsnarl is actually faster, getting off a Spirit Break from about 40% into the opposing Grimm, and they bring out Ogerpon. Switching Politoed to set up the rain, reducing that Ogerpon's damage, and T-Wave it to reduce its speed. Ogerpon Trailblazes to boost its speed, chunking Politoed, and their Grimm crits my Grimm with a Spirit Break. I decide to stay in. I know I've got the faster Grimmsnarl, so if Ogerpon doesn't target my Grimm, I'll chunk theirs. And if they do target Grimm, I'll lose both, but I'm in a really good spot with Rain up and my Sweepers in the back. Weather Ball chunks their Ogerpon and Grimm almost knocks out the Mirror. Ivy Cudgel, weather ball, clear the field. They have a fast Annihilate left, which takes out my Politoed, but weather ball and Ivy Cudgel take it out, winning me the first match. Game 2, a Rain Mirror, but they have a very, very scary Blood Moon Ursaluna. I take this fairly comfortably though, thanks to Pheasantipede being great into the majority of their team. You get poison on Blood Moon with Toxic Chain and deal tons of damage to Conkeldonk, Mandlepers and Ogerpon. Also getting the KO on the Blood Moon with the Poison Tick. Pheasantipede is super underrated, and I'm so pleased I added it to this team. Game 3 is a horrible, horrible matchup for us. Mouseape plus King Gambit. The only way I can see to get through this is to save Terra for the Annihilate and hope. Luckily, King Gambit Sucker Punch doesn't do nearly enough damage, and Rage Fist, with the extra stack, wins me the match. Game 4, the Matte Mirror. A really cool looking Illumise Sun team. +1 Ivy Cudgel does insane damage. Luckily, Goodra lives, and then my opponent goes for a Horn Leech, which of course Goodra is completely immune to, letting me take it out with a second Scald. Unfortunately, Annihilate is locked into Bulk Up, and I time out, not allowing me to switch. Stupidly, I don't swap out the Ape on the second opportunity, and Victory Bell gets speed boost from the Sun, KOing Goodra, leaving me with an Encored Annihilate and Politoed. So, of course, I lose. First loss is always hard to take, especially when it's a loss because you've made some stupid mistakes. But, got to brush it off and keep going. Still 11 games left today. Next up, we have a Super Grass team. They lead Terra Ice, Lucario, Ursaluna. Pheasantipede, luckily, survives long enough to get a Tailwind, thanks to the T-Wave reducing Lucario's speed, poisoning Ursaluna on its way out. Annihilate takes out Lucario. And thanks to the special attack drop, Grim lives a Blood Moon. The Toxic takes out their Ursaluna. They have Gardevoir and Sinistra back. Terra Water Goodra should win me this game. Rage Fist and Flamethrower do around half to the other side. Double Up takes out my Ape. Tailwind ends, but luckily Goodra is still somehow the fastest mon. For some reason, my opponent goes for a Dream Eater. Yes, they were hoping for Sleep Powder with Sinistra. For some reason, I go for Flamethrower instead of Scald, letting the Gardevoir live and get off a Psychic. We eat a Moonblast and KO with another Flamethrower. Scary, scary team up next. Monkey Dory and King Gambit are really strong into my team and very, very strong in this format. And this was a really, really tough matchup. Poison Monkey Dory does so much damage. I've got no answer to the Monkey Dory, which takes out half my team. The Noivern comes back in and cleans up the Hurricane. An unfortunate loss, but I knew it was going to be tough as soon as I saw the team preview. Midway point of the day, and we've got the strangest team yet. I gamble, lead in Annihilate, hoping for a Defiant boost so I can Terrifier and Sweep from there. Then one, I should have faked out the Garchomp instead of Taunting Sinister. With Garchomp on the field, it was never ever going to go for a Trick Room. Fake out into Bulk Up was the optimal play. I'd somehow get lucky with them going for Stealth Rocks, not being able to Strength Sap. Turn 2, I again missed the opportunity to Bulk Up, but I was worried about a Garchomp Earthquake. Then I stupidly Terrifier, but live the Earthquake, and the extra boost to Rage Fist lets me KO Sinister. Single target Dazzling Beam finishes off the Garchomp. Descending Gyarados giving me that all-important Defiant boost, but Yogapon is faster, so I'm forced to protect. I hope I can get a Tailwind up on Pheasantipede. It works, but Drain Punch doesn't KO after they Terra and get +1 defense. And then they KO my ape with Ivy Cudgel. Waterfall KOs Pheasantipede, but Water Ogre takes out their Rock Ogre, and they're left with a Flailing Gyarados versus an Ogre with Thornage. No chance. Hey mate, and we've got another pretty strange team. Rain is really, really strong here though, with Fire Ogerpon and 2 ground ones. The Water Gundra sweeps. KO and Garchomp with Draco Meteor. Mamoswine with a rain boosted Scald, despite the stat drop. And after switching to reset the stat drops, KO's Fire Ogre with another Scald. And if it wasn't for the light screen, would have scalded Grim to death too. We finally see the Stantless skill swap Intimidate strat. Luckily, Pranksator on Grimmsnarl completely shuts this down. A better player would not have led Stantler into a team that has Annihilate, but I guess they're so invested into their meme that they didn't really have any other option. A +1 Drain Punch barely misses the KO, but it taunted, so strat is done. I should have predicted the swap and Drain Punched on my Logitech. Instead, I whiffed. They switched in Chandelure. From here, I stole out the Trick Room, but I lose Grim in the process. Letting them get up a second Trick Room. But again, there's not really much they can do with their strat, and I scraped the win. Game 10, big sad, terrible, terrible matchup. Mouseape plus Illumise. Turns out, they're a normal Boom Burst Komodo next to Volgut Annihilate. Oh, this is gonna hurt. KO in their own Illumise, my ape KO in the Komodo and Mousehold. They're left with a +3 attack, +3 defense ape versus my Grimmsnarl, Terrifier, non-boosted ape, and Gudra. I stupidly forget about the special attack drop on Spirit Break. To be honest, I forget about that a lot. And give them a free Defiant proc. They one-shot my ape as expected. And I'm left hoping that a Draco could do 75% to this ape. It does. Scrape another win. One mistake almost cost me the game. The Lazzle next, huh? But other than that, Nothing we've not seen already. Flying Gyarados is such a tough matchup. Nate Grimm is super bulky. We miss a T-Wave and lose Grimm, which is terrible for us. Finisher gets up the Trick Room, and in comes Blood Moon. Luckily, they miss a match gotcha. Earth Power does very little, letting us get off a life tube. And constant switching to Sinister. Made their Blood Moon stay on the field way too long. And I got the forfeit. Game 12. And it's that horrible Indeedee Trick Room. I get absolutely cooked by Helping Hand's Hyper Voice. I shouldn't have swapped out the Pheasantipity. I should have stayed in and taunted, but I was hoping to stall out TR and get the second taunt in. It's best of one though, what can you do? Super cheesy, no skill strats like this will win you quite a few games, but they're not consistent enough to top a ladder. Unlucky 13. More Trick Room, more Blood Moon. Pirate Fairy Bear this time. We get off the taunt to stop the Trick Room. Brain boosted Ivy Cudgel doesn't quite get the KO, and Ogerpon drops to a Blood Moon. Draco Meteor kills the Sinister, and Weatherball finishes off the bear. And in come Ogerpon and Komodo. Komodo can't tear her out of its Dragon type, which would have let me KO with Draco. But Mold Breaker Ogerpon means it KOs with a Horn Leech. Game 14 and last game I'm playing for the day. Finisher plus Komodo, Clef plus Blood Moon. Terra Fairy Covert Cloak Komodo. That's a new one. We get a free bulk up off, but Grimm drops to a Helping Hand's Flash Cannon. Luckily, my opponent, and me for a second, forget the grass types, ignore Rage Powder, and Ogerpon finishes off the Komodo. Their Sinister and Clef are now facing down a +1 attack, +1 stack Rage Fist Ape, and Ogerpon. Despite Clef living a double up, both go down to the Angry Duo. Calling the target with my Ogre, switching Goodra to ignore the Horn Leech, and Protect Annihilate forcing the forfeit. We end day 1, 9 and 5. I'm pretty pleased with that. Day 2, however, completely killed all the optimism from day 1. I started horribly. 2 really quick defeats. And then the worst luck I've ever had in a single Pokemon match. 5 Parahacks out of 7 turns. Missed Draco. Some really strange plays by my opponent. They're constantly targeting the Politoed, and then they eventually attack my Goodra as I'm switching. So they get a Terra Flying, Terra Blast into my Annihilate and one-shots it. They keep, for whatever reason, lowering the attack on my special attacking Goodra. I don't understand it quite how they would have won this match without 6 rolls going in their favour. I do not know. For that, I was massively tilted, and I should have taken a break. Instead, keep going, and we end up on a 7-match losing streak in total. Finally, I realised it was time to take a break. I went off for a couple of hours. I collected myself, and I came back. Luckily, things massively improved after the break. My first opponent, after the break, brings Mouseape plus Gyarados. Pain. But this was a really good example of something I found pretty tough through the whole tournament. And that's my Haze Mon in Politoed being so slow. Luckily, they didn't terror Como immediately, so I made the read that they wouldn't terror the following turn. Paid off. Now we have a Fire Ogerpon in the rain. Not entirely sure why I did the double switch. T-waving Ogerpon and bringing in Goodra would have been a lot safer. So, besides the good read on Como, I played this match really badly. As soon as the rain stopped, I should have switched in Politoed to reduce the damage of the Ogerpon. This would have saved Goodra for the Sinister mashup and probably won me the game. Things were not looking good for our hero. We quickly get back on track though. Really fast match against a team that to me made very little sense. But then we go into a hard Trick Room match with 3 possible Trick Room setters and Gliscor. Again, we miss a Draco, which looks really bad. I should have doubled into or taunted the Hatterene on turn 2. I guess in the moment I forgot that Hat carries Trick Room as well. Another missed Draco. I was trying to get the KO in DD to prevent the terrain being reset, but I should have been getting rid of the major threat in Hatterene. However, despite the early turn misplays and those Draco misses, I played the endgame pretty well, and we come out with a win. Decent looking team, but got the double ground. Turn 1 Draco KO was huge. My opponent brought 2 ground types to a rain matchup, which wasn't the smartest play. Unfortunately for me, Monkey Dory is back. Big sad. Not entirely sure how I could have played the early game better. Then getting the Toxic on 8 was really lucky. I maybe should have seen the Protect on Ogerpon coming, which would have saved Grimmsnarl for 1 more turn. Preserving Goodra for the endgame was huge though. Finally we get to see a Shiftry! Note to self, Shiftry carries Tailwind, so it can proc its own Wind Rider. Getting rid of Shiftry immediately was huge. Calm Mind Sinister. Uh-oh. This was such a funny game though, because the Sinister had absolutely no way to break Gudra, no matter how many Carmines they got off. You just heal away the Life Orb chip with Life Dew. Auto win. Match 28. My worst nightmare. Uncle Mouse is so good. So good. Why I didn't taunt it though, I don't know. Getting the burn on Ape was massive, but it's pop on Household. I made what I think on all the right plays, but pop bomb Mousehold is so impressive in this format and so difficult for my team to deal with. You need to be faster than it to get rid, and max speed Jolly Mouse is 1 point faster than max speed Jolly Overpod. And pop bomb is a one shot even on a full health Gudra if they get the 10 hits. The end game, I probably should have gambled on a speed tie and one shot with Ivy Cudgel, but I wasn't sure if it would have KO'd. Now we have an almost mono water team, but with Sinister. Don't know about this, Chuck. I don't know what to say about this match, to be honest. I think maybe they were expecting me to bring the rain, but they don't really have anything with their team outside of the rain, so a fairly easy win. Game 30, Day 2 bonus round. And a really similar team to what I was considering running originally. With the Oncoin Drain Punch, should have seen the Basket Legion switch coming and double Pheasantipity, but what can I do? The read on Wave Crash into 8 though was godly. Should have Draco'd that Basket Legion. Other than one slight mistake, I think I played this game really well. Came into day 3 with a renewed sense of optimism after the second session of day 2. Honestly, after the first, I came very close to quitting and pretending that this competition had never happened. But during the break, I reminded myself I've not been playing long and shouldn't place such high expectations on myself. First match of the day is against an opponent with an exact 1500 rating, so probably their first match of the entire competition. Mousehold plus Clef. So much friendship power. But they also have a Gyarados, so big sad. And we start the day with 5 full powers. Plus Terra Dark, Terra Blast, Okie dokie. Okay. But honestly, Axe and Mousehold are really starting to piss me off. Game 2 of the day, and opponent is over 100 rating points above. Oh joys. And the team is Ilumise plus Rain plus Blood Moon Ursaluna. Really close battle. Not sure what I could have done better, to be honest. Helping Hand Hide Voice spam is just so dumb and so oppressive. Maybe if I hadn't got poisoned on Ogerpon, I could have won. Got a Parahax of my own, so I call that even. It was about as good as I could do it, I think. More Rain, more Blood Moon. Getting up Tailwind was huge, and that's totally banded Basculegion. This match really reminded me of just how important speed control is in VGC. If I wasn't able to outspeed that Basculegion and the opposing Ogerpon, I'd 100% lose that game. Fourth game in, and time for me to get some matchup luck, with me being way higher rated than my opponent. Better sound for evident, I guess. Double Grass, double TR with Komodo. Strange, but very scary. Haze on Politoed, probably going to be key in this matchup. For some reason, my opponent spent the entire endgame fishing for freezes on Politoed while healing their Snorlax with Life Dew. I don't quite understand it. Politoed wasn't a threat, and I was never going to Haze when I had a +3 Annihilate that outsped Snorlax. Finally get the freeze, which lets them belly drum. Okay. I've, like I said, got a +3 Annihilate with Rage Fist that outspeeds your Snorlax. Goodbye, relax. Game 35. Double Defiant, good stuff, squad. Hooked by Horn Leech into their own Annihilate. why I didn't T-Wave the Ogerpon sooner, I'm not sure. After swapping in a Politoed, the play was to protect and take out the Ogerpon with Spirit Break. But that one bad play cost me the entire game. Strange looking team. Double Intimidate with Staraptor and Arcanine. Probably Boomburst Komodo with Telepathy Gardevoir. I played this pretty well. Used T-Wave to make sure my Pheasant Dippity outsped. Got rid of the Ogerpon. Trading Grim for their Ogre probably wasn't the best, but it could have been a lot worse. Pulling the Terra Steel on Komodo, now that was a good play. And then getting rewarded with the burn, oh, amazing. Pretty pleased with how I played this one. It was a really fun game. But after a nice run of standard teams, we get back into the best of one bullshit. Terra Normal Double Edge Staraptor. They called the Drain Punch right, so they're definitely not a bad player. And if I'd remembered that Double Edge meant that Staraptor couldn't move on the next turn, I wouldn't have attacked that so long, since the switch was pretty obvious. But there's not a great deal I could do here. Weezing and Miragudra. Terrible decision to swap in Gudra, but I absolutely expected them to go after the Ogerpon. Protecting 8 in the end game there was a really bad play. It's toxic, so the poison damage ramps up every single turn it's on the field. So play should have been to Drain Punch and heal a little more back. Instead, it just let the poison kill me faster. I should have recognised this being a big stall team with all the poison chances. My opponent didn't really play particularly well, I just didn't know how to beat him. I chalked this one up to experience. Illumise, Shiftry, Mouseape. Oh, yay! Misty Explosion Gardevoir. Funny. If I protected the ape, they'd have killed their own Shiftry for me. Rain Dance, Encore, Illumise was such a good set though. And what can you do? Game 40, and we have all the setup. Double Belly Drum plus Komodo. Terror Dragon Physical Como. That's another new one. I've seen all the weird Como tech this competition. On to Weather Wars. Up against Sun plus Melodic plus Double Ground. Huh. They made a great play, saving Ninetales till I was forced to make the swap. But I should have seen it coming a mile off. I really should have gone on the offensive instead of letting the Arcanine get off another howl. Luckily, I managed to navigate through and the Fire Ape got me the win. A little bit of an odd combination with Mandibuzz, Bronzong and Gardevoir. I'm definitely on the lookout for that Misty Explosion. Oof, that's a lot of damage. Not much I could have done into that team really. It's similar to the Garchomp team I ran early on in Scarlet and Violet. I know how strong it is. I know how much damage that can put out. I think I played the early game just a little bit too passively, and I still had PTSD from the Misty Explosion Gardevoir earlier. Grass with Rainshao and Gyarados. Oh. T-Wave misses, almost cost me. But Parahax, Poison, so the luck evened itself out in the end. Despite the misses, and for some strange reason trying to power a Poison Gyarados, I played this one pretty well. Last but one match. Looks like hard Trick Room with Mouse and the Dunsparce. This could be. They always Terror Ghost the Snorlax. What was I thinking? The Protect was also pretty obvious. I should have gone for the Indeedee. I played this one so badly. So many misplays, so many bad reads. Follow me plus Taunt instead of waiting one turn for Trick Room to end. I probably threw this game on turn one. On to the last one. Let's see if we can finish strong. But instead we get another high-rated opponent using that Illumise Bronzong team from earlier. Unfortunately, I was so tired by this point. Gold into Water Absorb. Cranks the taunt into a dark type. So bad. And it's a terrifying King Gambit. Shock. Horror. Oh, they get Trick Room because I let my Grimmsnarl die. Ironhead flinch kind of got me there. I still had out, but I spiky shielded in front of the Ilamise, get encored. Day 3 went pretty well, and despite some misplays, some bad matchups, almost finished positive. Can't really ask for more. If I'm looking at the ratings of each player as my sign of whether they are better than me on my level or not as good as me, the record pretty much lines up. There's a few games that I really could have done better. All in all, I'm really pleased with how I came back from that horrendous run in day 2. Definitely a lot of learnings to take away. And I'll come back stronger in the next one. Hopefully, you finish with a positive record next time. Until then, goodbye.